Okay. So I think we can get started. All right, welcome everyone. For those of you who know me and those of you who don't, I'm Dr. Taddeo. So some of you are taking British history with me, but I wear a couple of extra hats in the department. I'm in charge of the History 386 internship course, and I'm so privileged to be the faculty advisor for the History Undergraduate Association. And this is an HUA hosted event. So I'm just going to say a couple of things in the beginning, and then I'm going to turn it over to our HUA co-presidents, Cecilia Howe and Kyle Cohen. So we've got a great lineup with, I'll just tell you who's here, and then I will turn it over to each of our panelists in turn so that you can just say something about yourself. And then our HUA officers have questions for all of our panelists. And then we're going to turn it over to the audience so they can ask any question that they want, reasonable questions, so that anything that they want to know about how to be successful as history majors and minors in an academic sense, but even in a social sense as well, because we want to build a community. So everything is up for grabs for our panelists tonight. All right. Okay, so we've got a nice crowd tonight. If anyone wants to just say hello in the chat, feel free to do that. All right, the first thing I do want to do though is to point all of you to our history website, because sometimes students, I know a lot of you, first of all, you don't read emails, and I do want to remind you, when you get emails from your professors, please read them because we can't text you. So this is the only way we can reach you. So when you go to the History UMD website, go to the undergraduate page, all right? And here we have one of your favorite professors, Dr. Childs. This was from last year's December event where we did a group reading of segments of A Christmas Carol for the HUA, and we're going to do it again in December. So I hope you'll join us for that. But as you look down, you'll see all the reasons you should be a history major or minor. These links are important. They'll take you to the different academic programs, events that are coming up or past. So, and then get to know your faculty when you're thinking about classes, and then the news. And we do want you to share your news with us. We like to feature all of you. If you get a cool internship, you get an award, you're doing a really, some kind of job, let us know, and I'll feature you on our Facebook page. And Dr. Barron, who runs our social media here for history, will feature you as well. When you hit beyond the classroom, as you'll see, okay, it will take you to some of the organizations we'll talk about tonight. So the HUA, Janus, and Phi Alpha Theta. And it will also take you to study abroad opportunities and internships, which is when you would contact me. If any of you are applying for an internship right now for the spring, contact me when you get it, and I will help you get course credit through History 386. I can also give you advice based on your interest on internships to apply for. And those emails I send you pretty much every week have internship opportunities, and that's why you shouldn't ignore emails from me. All right, so there are links to potential internships as well as reasons why you should do it and all the requirements that are necessary, okay? So don't ignore our website. It provides really a lot of vital information. Okay, so I am going to turn it over, introduce our panelists and let them say a few words about themselves, the roles they play in our department. And you should get to know all of them at some point in your career at UMD. So first off, I'd like to introduce our new chair, Dr. Karim Mustafa. He just started his chair in August. So when you walk into that room, say hello to the people, to the office staff, and to our chair. Would you like to say something?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and welcome you all to this event, again, put together wonderfully by my colleague, Dr. Julie Taddeo, who does such wonders with HUA, the History Undergraduate Association. And thank everyone of the participants from faculty, I see, and staff, and also graduate students and undergraduate students, of course, featuring Cecilia and Kyle in particular. I just my role is brief. Beyond welcoming you, I just want to let you know that we are a rather large department, in fact, one of the 3 largest departments in the College of RHU. And we have lots of moving parts. And as my colleague Julie just told you, we have a new administration this summer, not just me, but the associate chair, the director of graduate studies, director of undergraduate studies. We're all new and anxious to get input and from you in particular. So I know for a fact that all of my colleagues are really interested in and rather invested in history, both as an academic discipline, but also as training for life, so to speak. And I can tell you that whatever there may be, they're all energized by you, our students, and you are the real engines. I think I'm not exaggerating in saying this, in keeping us going. So basically, I would urge all of you to somehow give us your input about anything and everything, because beyond the classrooms, there sometimes are limited opportunities of interaction. But please get your messages to us, whether it's about course scheduling, what other courses you'd like to see, the timing of our courses and such matters, all the way to what other things we should be covering and all that. We'd love to hear from you. And don't be shy about coming to us with your views. That's all I have to say. Have a great panel. I'm sure it's a perfect lineup, so please enjoy yourselves.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us and welcoming everybody. Let's see. Our history advising officer isn't here yet. Hopefully she will be here. But all of you, obviously, before you register for spring, you do have to meet with your history advisors, okay? And that's right on the 2nd floor of Key. Make sure you do that. I would like to introduce Dr. Katerina Keene, who I know some of you may be taking classes with her, and if you haven't, you must. She also wears a couple of hats in our department. Dr. Keene?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us on a Monday night. Yes, thank you, Professor Taddeo, for including me, and Cecilia and Kyle too. Yeah, I play a couple of roles in the department. I am the executive director for the Center for Global Migration Studies, which is an interdisciplinary center on campus looking at issues related to migration and immigration, but it's housed in the Department of History. And you can do a transcript notation with us, which is a little bit easier than a minor. It's only 4 classes, but it gives you a little bit of a boost on your transcript when you go out into the real world and say, I have this little bit of expertise. I also teach classes, kind of wide range of classes. Some of you have taken my classes. I teach an I course on American consumer history, teach a course in the 1960s, and I teach some courses on women and gender history.
Okay. And she's been very active with the HUA. You've been doing some film discussions with us. So thank you for all you've done to support the HUA. All right, we'll have questions for you. Let's see. Next up, I'd like to introduce Professor Patrick Chung, who also now is wearing a couple of hats in our department.
Hi, everyone. Good night and welcome and thanks for coming. I am the faculty advisor for Phi Alpha Theta. It's a History Honor Society. So for those of you who are interested in kind of getting a taste of sort of academic history, I think Phi Alpha Theta is a really great opportunity. My main job here is to connect you with other chapters. So there are over 1,000 chapters across the country of Phi Alpha Theta with over 400,000 members at any given time. So they get together biannually for a national conference as well as various regional conferences as well. So I'm going to be your sort of connection to those opportunities. And if you're interested in joining, I send out a call for applications every spring. The requirements are that you have 12 or more credits in history, only 3 of which can be AP or transfer credits. and you need a 3.0 GPA or higher and a 3.1 GPA or higher in history courses. The application process is pretty straightforward. You have a short application and you send me an unofficial transcript just to verify that you meet all the requirements, and then a membership fee, and then you will be inducted at the end of the spring semester. And an additional perk is that during graduation, you will get an additional set of cords to wear alongside your graduation robes. If you have any questions, please reach out. I will be reaching out to all of you potential interested people in the spring. Just a little bit about me. Aside from Phi Alpha Theta, I teach courses here on military history. I teach courses on Asian American history, as well as modern sort of global US and modern South Korean history as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know we have a lot of overlap. HUA members are also going to be Phi Alpha Theta members, and they'll be submitting their wonderful essays to our undergraduate journal. Mark Salmon, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. So my name is Mark. I am one of the editors-in-chief of JANIS, the undergraduate history journal here on campus. So just to give a quick rundown of what that is, we essentially publish student-written essays and research papers at the end of every semester. So we usually have a call for papers around end of November, and we try to post the journal around mid or end of December. And so it really is open to anybody, but we really want to encourage history majors and minors specifically because we really only look for papers that are history focused. So if you've written a paper for a class you really enjoyed, or even did some research on your own and wrote a paper on it, feel free to submit your paper and we will review it and consider it for a publication in our journal. It's a really great resume booster because you can say you were published as an undergraduate student, which is sometimes very hard to do. And we also have a website that we keep running every single week, and our actual JANIS members post weekly blogs about any topic that they're interested in. We get some from, you know, any historical topic. And so we really recommend you check that out. I can put the link in the chat for our website. Every semester, we open applications to join JANIS, so keep an eye out for that at the beginning of the spring semester. But really what I want to do is plug our end of semester journal. So just keep an eye out, maybe look through your papers you've written in the past or some you might write, you know, midterm season just ended and even some final papers coming up. Look at those papers, see if there's one that you really enjoy, you really wanted to work hard on, and you did well in, and feel free to submit that. We'll send some announcements later when we open the submissions, but we just want to you know, just get you guys thinking about some papers you might want to get published. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Next, we have someone who you may have had for your 208. Are you doing 208 this semester, Michael? Okay, Michael Bailey is a grad student in our department. So as you know, everyone usually has to do a history 208 and then the history 408 in your senior year. But the 208 is going to really prepare you for that. So if you'd like to talk a little bit about that and other roles that you play in the department and what it's like to be a grad student.
Sure, great. So yeah, as Dr. Taddeo said, I'm Michael, and this semester and also in the spring, so a little commercial for it in the spring, I'm teaching History 208, which is your kind of introductory course capstone, where we learn to do independent research for a lot of students. Maybe you haven't had an opportunity to do your own historical research using primary source documents to make your own original argument. And that's something that we do in History 208. And it might seem a little daunting to have this to be your like a capstone, but we take it one step at a time and kind of you know, hold your hand a little bit throughout the process, which I know is helpful for me. And so I, you know, hope that's what we do in History 208. As Dr. Taddeo said, this is a requirement in the major. So I teach a History 208 course about pre-modern minorities. There are every semester a couple to choose from. So I see at least one of my students here. Maybe she can tell you it's a good class. I don't know. But in addition to being a graduate student, I'm a PhD candidate in Jewish history in the department, and I've been in the department for a while. So if any of you are considering grad school, I'm more than happy to talk to you about that. Or if you have any questions about it, it's pretty different than undergrad, but it's its own kind of wonderful and maddening challenge. So I'm definitely happy to answer questions about that. And I've also, in my role as a graduate student in the history department, have been a TA a number of times. So if you have any questions about, I don't know, what are TAs looking for in section, or how can I best like take advantage of this, you know, thing I have to go to every week, like what am I supposed to be getting out of it? I'd be more than happy to talk about that as well, because I definitely have a lot of experience there. So I hope to be a resource for you. And if you think of any questions beyond this night, you're definitely welcome to reach out to me. I'm pretty much live in Key these days. So
All right,
good
thank
to
you,
talk to
Michael.
you. Yeah.
And, you know, when you're taking these large classes, you know, the professor is doing, you know, the lecturing, but the TA is really doing, you know, the TA is grading your work and doing the discussion sessions. So you really want to, you know, go to the office hours and get to know your TA as well. Okay, so we have, I'm going to save the undergraduate advising office for last. So before I get to Shelley, I want to introduce both Andrew Forschler, who went through the honors program, and now he is in the Hills program, which a lot of our undergraduates applied for. So he can speak to both. And we have a current honors student, Julia Grafstein, with us. So she'll talk after Andrew. Professor Muncie couldn't be with us tonight, so she recommended both Andrew and Julia to represent her. All right, Andrew.
Let's see. Hi, yeah, so thanks for that great introduction. So I'm an alum of UMD and the History Honors Program. I graduated in 2021, BA in History, and I also have the East Asian Studies Certificate and the Secondary Education minor, with both dovetail with history a lot, so I can speak to those too. But just to sort of tee up the History Honors Program, basically it's a sequence of 4 courses or 2 years worth of work. And basically the first 2 courses are sort of like seminars where you do a lot of reading. The first one is sort of based around historiography, or sort of think about like the act of writing history, and you dabble a little bit in theory and like different methods and thinking about that. Then the second course is sort of just like a seminar with another professor. Basically, when I took it, it was with Dr. Zeller, so we read environmental history. And then the last 2 courses are where you work on a thesis, which is typically somewhere between 50 and 100 pages in length. And you're producing basically a work of original research in some way. And you get to work one-on-one with a professor who you select, you talk with, and you work together to devise a plan. And typically the first semester is sort of focused on research and really thinking about where you want to go. And then the second semester is doing the act of writing it all together. Basically at the end, you wind up with a finished product. And I believe you do get some special cords with graduation. Unfortunately, when I graduated, it was still during COVID and everything. So I'm a little bit hairy about the exact details of that, but maybe some other people who didn't graduate during COVID can speak more towards that. But yeah.
When you get your degree in Hills, we'll throw a party for you. I promise.
Yeah. Oh, and just real quick, I can also just say Hills because I know not everyone might know exactly what that is. It's basically a 3-year program in which you get a master's in history and an MLIS degree as well. And basically it's aimed for people who want to work in potentially like a museum or archives or libraries to really get that sort of specific history training, but also to get that training in libraries and think about how we can really help serve patrons and everything. And I guess I'll just say too, my focus in history is sort of first half of 20th century US queer history, history of sexuality, and history of gender too. So that's what I'm doing my master's work on. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I have to say that the Hills, you do get great jobs. If you attended our alumni event last month, you will have met a couple of graduates from that. They're working in archives. We have someone working for the World Bank. The sky's the limit, all right? Now, Julia, you want to say hello?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the introduction. And Andrew, that was a great summary of the honors program. So I am currently a junior and I'm writing my thesis. So I'm in the midst of my second year in the honors program. I'm doing my thesis on transgender activism in sort of the latter half of the 20th century. And while the classes that I was in the honors program last year weren't really specifically to do with that, I felt like they set me up for it really well, because we talked about all of the different ways of approaching history and different ways that history is recorded and viewed, and just so many great examples. I mean, we went from a unit on oral history to a great little mini unit on monuments, and in the first semester class on like historiography, and then we transitioned into a fantastic course on environmental history that really got us thinking in ways that would allow us to utilize secondary sources and also prepare us for finding our own primary sources to do our research with. And these are courses that I never would have taken if I wasn't in the honors program, but I'm so happy that I did. It's been really enjoyable, and I'm just so excited to be able to finish up my thesis this year.
Okay, thank you, Julia. So not all of you may want to do in the honors program, and that's totally fine too. Some of you tonight may just be thinking or already doing a history minor. So there's lots of opportunities for you to work history into your studies while you're at Maryland. So I'm going to turn it over to one of our history advisors, who you definitely have to meet with before you register for the spring. Shelley, is it Justamont? I want to say it correctly.
Justament.
Justament. Okay. Shelley Justament from the advising office.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I work in the advising office, which I believe the room number is 2131 Francis Scott Key. I am one of the advisors along with James Santos. You may meet with him instead of me, depending on which day you come in, or meet with us over Zoom. So we help you answer questions about your history coursework, just general advising questions about history. A lot of people confuse us with RHU, think that we can answer gen ed questions. Unfortunately, we cannot do that. We can only help with the history courses, but arts and humanities will definitely help you with your gen ed questions and things like that. And Professor Taddeo, did you want me to speak about the minor or the major?
The HUA officers have questions for all of you, so I'm going to let them probably ask you about that. Okay. I do have a student who has to leave. So before I turn it over to Kyle and Cecilia, Natia, did you want to ask your question now?
Sure. I just had a question about, like, is the advising like also like necessary or like recommended for history minors, or is that just for the majors?
So for minors, it's not required that you meet with us. We do recommend it though, especially the semester or two before you're planning to graduate, just so we can ensure you have everything done.
Can you speak to how many courses are needed for the minor?
Sure. So in total, it would be 6 history courses. There are a few different requirements on what those courses need to be. One would need to take place pre-1750. One would need to be post-1750. And then you would need 2 different geographic regions, and 3 of those courses would need to be upper level. And so all of those requirements can overlap and double count with one another, but in total it would be 6 history courses. And if you would like to meet with James or I, we would be happy to go over the minor sheet in more detail with you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to our co-presidents of the History Undergraduate Association, Kyle and Cecilia. Do you want to say a few words about HUA?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle. I'm co-president of the History Undergraduate Association, also known as HUA, and I'm also a member of Phi Alpha Theta. And there are no requirements to join HUA, and Cecilia will tell you more about upcoming events, and I'll send the link to join in the group message.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cecilia. I'm obviously the co-president of the History Undergraduate Association. I am a history major and an LGBT studies minor. My concentration is women, gender, and sexuality. If anyone has any questions about that specifically, I can definitely help with that. So in terms of HUA, as Kyle said, no requirements, but if you do want to attend an event, we have one coming up this Wednesday, the 26th at 6:30. It's a ghost story social hour, so it's super chill. We're gonna meet outside of Key and sort of like read a ghost story aloud for Halloween, and there's gonna be cider and donuts, I believe, there. So that is coming up for that. And now we're going to sort of move into the questions for the panelists. These are going to be very general because we want students to be able to ask more specific questions. And I guess we left off with Shelly for the panelists. So I'm just going to move into a question for her first. I believe Dr. Karmustafa left. So if you have questions for him, like reach out to him specifically or the department. So Shelly, I was just wondering if you could sort of go over some of the changes with the history major. I know that's like kind of happened last semester, but just sort of like reiterate those for people who maybe are already in the major and don't know or anything like that. And then anything else that you think is important for people to know coming up in terms of like registration or anything like that.
Sure. So is it okay if I share my screen?
Hold on, I have to give you.
Just in the meantime, the main change to the history major is some of you may know you previously had to take supporting courses, which were upper level courses outside of the history department to complete your history major. Now, instead of those, we have taken those supporting courses away and just added some more distribution requirements. And it looks like I can share my screen now. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, let's see. I don't know why it's not. There we go. Okay, let me know. Can you see this? Okay. So yeah, basically everything with the history major has stayed the same in this first half of the major sheet. You're still gonna have your 4 intro courses with your 208, your 5 courses in your field and 3 outside, as well as then taking your 408 or an honors course. And then this is where the change is. Instead of doing your 3 supporting courses, you're just going to need 3 different geographic regions and a pre-1750. And all of these will be history courses instead of courses outside of the history department. So are there any other questions about that? Okay, and then I should also add that we now have an AP credit course limit, so you can only have 6 credits fulfilled by AP history courses. So that means 2 history AP courses.
I do want to stress though that the History 386, your internship does count, right? It's 3 credits towards the major or minor. So you can get credit that way as well.
Yes.
Okay. So wait, Shelly, since we have you here, a student, Ariana, wanted to know, how do you decide on if you want to do history as a major or a minor?
I would recommend making an appointment with James or I in the history advising office. You can send history advising an email. I will write our email in the chat. And we can go over the difference between major and minor. Obviously, the major is more classes you would need to take, but if you want to know more, if it would fit in your personal plan as a student, we would be happy to go over that with you as well.
And if someone is an international student, as Ariana is, and she's going to do a history minor, she meets with you as or major. She would meet with you, right? Even though she's an international student.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, people are already directly asking you questions. So Cecilia and Kyle, is it okay if we let her take those?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Let's see. Katie wants to know if there's a maximum of credits that you can get for history while studying abroad.
I am not sure if there's a maximum number of credits while studying abroad. I don't believe there is. Just if you have questions about studying abroad and the courses aren't already listed as things that we count for credit at UMD, you would email us a syllabus from the course you're taking abroad, and we would examine it and make sure we would count it for credit here.
Okay. And how about the AP credit? How much does AP credit count towards the minor, since only 6 classes are needed?
Yes, so for the minor, only one AP course can count, so 3 credits. And it would either, you can only have 1 AP, 1 transfer, and 1 IB, like international. I'm not sure what IB stands for actually. But it would have to only be 1. The rest of them would need to be taken at UMD.
Okay, and you want to. Do you take advantage of the great professors we have here? Is there a list of AP credits that apply? Because not all APs may count, right? Like world history versus European history. Where would they find that?
You could email History Advising or Transfer Credit Services, I believe, may know. Usually we do accept most of the common history APs like world history, European history, US, things like that we usually accept.
Okay, great.
Wait, I have a follow-up to that. Isn't there a minimum grade you have to get on the AP?
Yes. I think it's usually a 4. But I have seen it be different. We will let you know if it can or cannot count.
Okay. All right, Kyle or Cecilia, who's your next question for?
So this one is for you. What does it look like to get credit with your internship through the department? For example, like what are some requirements in order to get credit for the internship?
Okay, don't be put off by our website. That was, it's easy. And I try to make it easy for you. So, a lot of times students think that it has to be an internship in a museum or the archives. No, I've had students who get internships a lot of times through your own social networking. But if you get an internship, for instance, at the 930 Club or in a law office, as long as it's I can verify it as an internship, we find a way to make it a history internship. And that's through the writing assignments. And the writing assignments are really manageable. You can either do a 10-page like mini research paper, or we do professional-based reflective essays. And then I have a couple of short professional assignments for you, like updating your resume, things like that. So it's super easy because most of your time is spent getting your internship hours. And I had students this summer who interned with Amazon, who did virtual internships for legal aid in Texas, all sorts of things. So start applying now. I've sent you possible internships, and then our website has some ideas as well. But be creative, contact people directly. And once you get it, I start the ball rolling and you get your course credit, okay?
Okay, we can move on to the next question. This one's for Dr. Chung. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about what some of the benefits would be to joining Phi Alpha Theta for people who maybe don't know, like, why would I join it in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that is sort of in transition. I just started as the Phi Alpha Theta coordinator. So I'm trying to figure out how exactly it would be most useful to people. Just as sort of an organization, like I said, it's helpful as a networking venue. If the regional conferences that they hold every 2 years let you meet with history sort of honor students throughout the country. It also gives you a chance to write a conference paper, which is the main way historians really kind of share their ideas with each other. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of a professionalization experience. I did also forget to mention there is an annual essay contest as well. So if you had a paper that you should definitely consider getting published in Janus, but you could also apply to win the Phi Alpha Theta essay contest as well. So those sort of professional opportunities, the biannual conference and the regional conferences, and going forward, I think we're going to have more events as a chapter at the University of Maryland, where I'm still trying to learn the ropes. But some of the things that we have been considering is kind of more professional based. So having maybe a meeting or two a year where we go over potential sort of strategies for presenting papers, or having sort of paper writing kind of workshops, what have you. So those are some of the things that we have in the works, but just base sort of membership, I think, like I said, is sort of access to those larger networking opportunities.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Dr. Keene, what does the Center for Global Migration Studies have to do with history? And how do courses taken through the center overlap with the history department?
Oh, great question, Kyle. So some classes through the center are history classes. We have an oral history class. We have a kind of history of U.S. immigration. There's an upper level course on immigration and ethnic history. But you can also take immigration classes in other units, right? Public health, literature, languages, whatever you can find. So that's one thing. And the other thing I would say is we also do a lot of research projects, and we try, when we have grant funding, to bring in undergraduates to work on those, which gives you some experience on the job market. Say you worked on this grant funded project, collecting metadata, working on oral histories, whatever it might be. So that's kind of the place of what the center does with undergraduates.
Thank you for that response. And then we can move on to the next question. So this one is for Michael. And I was just wondering if you could maybe just give a few quick tips on how to succeed in History 208 for people who are maybe a little bit intimidated by it. Just some general helpful tips.
Sure, yeah. So the first thing I would say is reach out to your instructor. Like, if there's ever something that you don't understand or you have a question on, even if you think that it's something you should understand already, number one, chances are you're not the only one with that question. And number two, your instructor is more than happy. I know this because I'm an instructor, but also the other folks who are teaching these classes are people that I know and work with, and they're lovely and definitely want to be there to help you understand. I think, one of the big skills that we foster in History 208 is being able to think critically. So to be able to ask questions of the sources that you use. I hope you do this in all of your history classes, but this is something that, when you're writing your own original research, you can ask questions like, who wrote this document that I'm reading? What were their motivations? That sort of thing. The other thing I can say is just a general commercial to go to class. I know maybe that seems basic, but I don't know. I wasn't a perfect angel in undergrad, and definitely was known to skip class from time to time, but History 208 only meets once a week. And so if you miss one class, that's like missing 2 classes in any other class. So general commercial to go to class, but History 208 especially. Yeah, and I guess, the other things that I would say are, if you can if you're the kind of person who would want to reach out to people in your class, everyone there is basically working on the same kind of research project that you are. So if there's a way to make a study group or to somehow keep accountability, the class is small. I try to do that in there with my students, but you might want to reach out to your classmates too.
This question is for Andrew and also Julia. What are some likes and dislikes about the honors program? Some things you wish you knew going into the program, and also just what the overall workload was like.
Yeah, I guess basically one of the things that I really loved about the program is the sense of community that it built. I know people in my cohort, I'm still friends with them, I still text with them, and I feel like in my cohort, there was never a moment in which I felt like I was alone with writing the thesis, or I didn't have someone that I could reach out to. There, you know, I felt like everybody was really there for each other. That's one of the greatest things. I guess one of the things that was, I wouldn't say it was a dislike, because I think it was a very important step of growth, but was the amount of reading. I think you go from doing, you know, your general, you know, 200, 300 level course, and then you walk into, you know, History 395, I think is the first one, and suddenly you're almost reading like a book per week, basically. So it you know, it's a lot, and that's difficult. But I mean, I really think too, even though the thesis might sound like a lot of work, I mean, 50, 100 pages, that's probably some of the most, I think, you know, as an undergrad, like that was bigger than anything I thought I'd ever write. But it really flew out, and it's just so enjoyable and exciting to really do your own original research and find something out and feel like you've really done something and accomplished something too. So.
I definitely second the community idea. I think the first class of 395, I walked out with all my other classmates, all like 7 of them, and we just talked about the class in front of the building, and we did that for the rest of the semester, and it was great. It was just a great way to sort of debrief and decompress after class, and, you know, get all your anxieties about, you know, reading that much and writing the thesis out, and it was fantastic. One thing I wish I knew when going into it was that I would be writing a thesis, because I did not know that when I signed up. And then Professor Muncie told us that we should start thinking about it. I was like, thinking about what? But it's great. It's honestly just a fantastic program. I suppose the one thing I would change would be the timeline of 396, I believe, because you go from finding a mentor to writing sort of like half of one of your chapters all in one semester. So definitely, if you do the program, just start thinking about things a little bit earlier, at the end of that fall semester. Start thinking about who you want your mentor to be and who you want to ask and what kind of areas you want to really focus on. But overall, it's a great program, and like the breadth of information that you like intake is just incredible.
Okay, Julia, stay on, because we have a question from Ella. She wants to, and I think this is a really good question, like, how approachable is the program? Are the courses intimidating? Are the people nice? Because it can sound a little scary. And Dr. Muncie, who's fantastic, so there's nothing scary about her. I don't know if she'll be doing it next year, but I mean, any professor who runs the honors, don't worry, they're not going to be scary. But was there anything, you know, does it feel intimidating, or did it, or what?
Yeah, I think going in, especially before I started talking to my classmates, it felt a little intimidating, but really having that sense of community and being able to just vent sometimes about, you know, if you're reading something that you don't enjoy necessarily, or if you're really struggling with getting ideas for one of the papers, and having people to go to makes the whole program so much easier. And then you also feel so much more comfortable when you're in your discussions. Like, you learn really quickly that these people are all just as motivated as you are and just as interested. And that makes the whole discussion class more enjoyable. You don't feel like you're being forced to talk. You feel like you want to get your ideas out.
Okay. But you know, at the end of the day, some people might not want to do honors, or for whatever reason, they're not going to. There are opportunities to form a community in the history department. And I know it's not always easy, but that's what the HUA is for. If you come to one or a couple of our events, the history trivia nights, you know, we do have social stuff, because you want to feel like you're part of a community too. It's not just the academic side, it's the social side. Okay. Questions for anyone else that you have, Kyle or Cecilia?
No, I think we can move on to just like the general questions. I mean, I know Ella just asked a question. There's 2 more in the chat too that are a little bit more general, so we can sort of open that up to anyone who thinks they can answer it. So the first one is from Alessandro, and they said, how would you say acquiring a history minor can help broaden a student's academic and professional life if they are currently not a history major? So maybe advising, or any professor who who knows about this. Or if someone is in the minor, if you're not a panelist and maybe you just want to give insight on that, that's also cool.
Yeah, do we have any minors amongst us?
I'm one.
Okay, so why did you do it? And what's your major?
I'm a government and politics major, and I wanted to sort of explore what other things that were in different departments and the colleges and the university. And I took a history class my first semester for a gen ed credit, and I really enjoyed it. So I picked up the minor. What I love about the minor is that you're very flexible. You can take pretty much any classes you want within certain geographical and historical period parameters, but they're very general and they're very easy to sort of work around, to sort of build whatever types of classes you're really interested in. It was a great way to sort of complement my government and politics courses. A lot of the government politics courses are very centered on political theory and political strategy. And so this was a great way to learn about the history of these political systems. A lot of times the other courses don't go into the history of things. And I think that learning history is the best way to sort of understand what to do in the future and determine, your decision-making in school and in your job life in the future. And it's my favorite decision. I finished my minor last semester, and I think it's just a great way to sort of get a taste of history, and a pretty good one. It's pretty intense, but not to the point where you have to commit to a whole major for it. So it's a great way if you're not really sure about history, but you want to get a little bit of extra sort of jump on, courses in history. I think it's a great opportunity. I really recommend it. It's easy to sign up for it. So, yeah, I really, really love it.
Alessandro, who asked the question, what is your major? If you want to.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm currently an international business major, but I was planning on switching to marketing and management.
Okay. So I have had students who have done computer science as their major. They've done business, marketing, and a lot of them either do the history minor or the major because it does add just a different side to your professional development. A lot of employers are getting upset with graduates who are not that articulate, who can't even write an email. Because you do, I know you don't use email a lot of you students, but you're going to be sending emails at work. And, history majors are creative thinkers. So, and that's why Amazon is looking to our majors and minors as well for interns. So it does add another layer of skills that employers are very attracted to. And it makes you interesting. It makes you outgoing and more talkative.
Thank you, Dr. Taddeo.
Okay.
Dr. Chung, did you have something to add to that?
Oh yeah, just really quickly following up on Professor Tadeo's point. So my wife works in marketing for like a tech company, and like she talks about potential people she's hiring and their ability to write. One of the things that she requires is a writing sample because they do a lot of writing of emails. So I can sort of attest firsthand, mostly because we were stuck in like a 1-bedroom apartment during COVID. So I overheard a lot of this in person, but sort of being able to condense a lot of information and write about it in a coherent, but not only coherent, but compelling way is, I definitely think, one of the things you get out of taking history classes and definitely being a history major and a minor as well.
Okay.
We also had a question from Wade who said they were wondering about different job opportunities with a history major other than teaching and working in a museum. Their plan is to teach for Montgomery County, but they're wondering if there are any other options out there.
Well, I'll address this because we just had our alumni event. So one thing you do want to do, go on LinkedIn because you're going to connect to other UMD alumni, and really early on in your time at Maryland, get to know the Career Center. We have a fantastic Career Center director, Kate Jewell, and she has an office on the first floor of Key where she's there a couple days a week. And let me tell you, I've been at other universities and this is the best Career Center. So they'll help you as well. Don't think that you can only be a teacher, a lawyer, or a grad student. All those things are great. And Wade, my kid's in my MCPS school. So I'm so glad we're getting good teachers. But you can do anything. That's the point I want to make. And we do have the recording from the alumni event that's up on the website. So if you want to check it out, potential employers, because they're always looking for University of Maryland graduates, and they like history majors. So you can do marketing. I had students who've gone into fashion, real estate. I had a student who was a football player that was a history major. And when he couldn't play football anymore, he went into commercial real estate, but he said it was history that gave him the skills to be a good talker and do so well. So really, I don't think you should limit yourself in any way, but I do want you to be a teacher. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
If there's no other comments on that question, we also have a question from Risa in the chat. And she was wondering what the main differences between doing a geographic versus thematic concentration are, specifically one such as the cultural and intellectual concentration. Maybe Shelley, you could give some insight on this.
Sure. So the main difference is it's just about what type of history you're interested in. I don't know if that's a super helpful answer to that question, but really you're picking your field based on what classes you want to be taking. Each semester will publish a list of courses that fall under each field. So for cultural and intellectual, you could take courses that are geographically anywhere, like they could fall under any time period as long as they fall under the cultural and intellectual. I will say that if you do a thematic concentration, sometimes it's easier to get those geographic requirements done faster because you're not limiting yourself to a certain geographic region. But at the end of the day, it's really just what you're interested in studying.
Okay. We also had a follow-up about the minors from a student who's a studio art major. And she wants to know, how would a history minor benefit her? And would it have to be a focus on art history? And I say no. Dr. Key, you want to address that? We got to, how can we promote this minor? It's because it's actually quite helpful.
I mean, I think the minor's great. I think, the fact that it's only 6 classes makes it possible to fit into a lot of people's academic calendar and still graduate in 4 years. And some of our classes are cross-listed, right, with what might be your home unit. If you're doing Jewish studies, right, Michael was the advisor over there, I think, right? Or if you're doing art history, we have some that are cross-listed there too. So you can kind of supplement the work you're already doing in your major with the history minor. Is that what you wanted me to talk about?
I guess it's just this idea, like, is the history major or minor so alien to these other fields, like studio art, pursuing that particular career? So how would history benefit the student?
I'm just thinking about students I've advised over the last few years, and some of them honestly saw history as like their fun classes. They majored in like chemistry because they felt like they had to do a STEM, but they loved history, right? And so history became the place where they enjoyed their time in the classroom the most. But I think other people take the minor and then think about how they're going to apply it in the job force. So one of my students right now is a business major, but he's trying to take as many histories of business, economics, histories of capitalism in our department to kind of supplement his interest, his major, and to be able to use that when he goes out in the job market. So it's really, I think it's a kind of a toss-up. People use it differently.
Okay. I also think people who study history tend to be much more interesting. We like stories, narratives. We're creative thinkers. We're good talkers. We can relate to all sorts of people, and we have empathy. And I think in any career, studio art, teaching, law, business, that's going to help you. It's going to make you a more well-rounded person. And I think, your
We're helpful on quiz
like
teams. Any trivia team you need a historian.
All right. So Sam is asking about advice for getting internships or jobs in the field without relevant experience. So I guess that one is for me. Alessandro, thank you for coming. So internships, yes, visit our internship website and that will give you ideas of internships in the area. Make an appointment with me and we can talk one-on-one. Once you tell me what your interests are, I can help you tailor your search. We also have some great internships like on campus or near campus. The National Archives too. We have internships, actually Dr. Childs may be having some internships in the spring. So if you take a class with him, ask him about it. For the Empire State engagements, this is really, he does a cool podcast. There are all sorts of opportunities, but you have to let me know what you like and what area of history you're pursuing, and then we can tailor it that way. Just don't think you have to do one in a museum, because absolutely not. You can do an internship anywhere. I will say that internships are becoming almost like required to have on your resume, but I would recommend you doing an internship, hopefully that pays, and government internships do pay. HU also offers a scholarship fund because it becomes a burden sometimes. So if you're getting course credit, that's awesome, but you may need some help paying for some of the expenses. And so I'll give you the information for the HU scholarship. Okay, how about other people in the audience? You can ask any question, within reason. Like if you want to know something specific from one of our grad students or undergrads, just advice, anything. Taking exams, midterms you just got through, what was it like? Is it going to get worse? So audience, throw out some questions.
I would also add for the last question that was asked, about getting an internship without relevant experience. I am still worried about this because I haven't had an official internship until this semester. I'm doing something through the English department, actually. It's through a class, but it's an internship through the Dickinson Electronic Archives. So that's maybe a possibility. I don't know. I just sort of came across it because a friend did it, and there's no requirements. You just sort of ask for permission to be in it. But also have good connections with your professors, because if you have good recommendations, that really helps you whether or not you have experience in the field itself. And they also have connections. So if you know professors and they can give you good recommendations, that's helpful. And also if you join a club and you sort of are involved in leadership there, that's also a really good way to boost your resume and submitting papers to Janice and getting that, even if you're not necessarily having a job or an internship already in the field and you want to get into the field, having sort of those extracurriculars is always helpful.
Caroline has a follow-up question about internships, so we should take it. What type of internship or experience would you recommend looking for to stand out to employers? So sometimes what happens with internships, you might think that you want to pursue a certain career. Like I've had students do an internship with a law firm because they thought I'm going to law school, and then they realized how much they hate the law after the internship. And I've had that experience with students doing internships on the Hill, where they're like, I hate this environment, and others have fallen in love with it. And some of those internships, we've had a few students who actually have led to entry-level jobs on the Hill. And the Hill can be a tough place, or it can be a very fulfilling career. So if you're interested in politics, I would definitely recommend applying for the internships with a congressperson or a senator or your state reps. Find out who they are. And I think that will help, especially if you're going to go into that line of work. But it doesn't have to be. You could do an internship, let's say with the National History Day, even though you're going to go into business. The point of the internship is to show sort of how you can juggle all of these duties, and you're out there getting professional experience. And that's what makes you attractive. I'm going to throw this one to our grad students. Is grad school worth it? And that's a good question.
I think Tracy may have heard my perspective before. So if anyone wants to go first, you're welcome to.
Well, I mean, I guess I can speak to it about being, in Hills a little bit. And that, I mean, when I graduated, I really didn't have much of a sense at all what I wanted to do. I kind of thought, oh, maybe I want to work in an archive, possibly. But then in Hills, and I had no experience in library science or information science or anything like that. And so going into the program and taking my first class in archives, I discovered I hate archives. I hate the idea of working, you know, basically alone with documents all day. And I discovered that I really love like reference and helping people find what they really want. And I'm not quite sure that I would have had as quick a turnaround in terms of really finding out what sort of place, I guess, sort of in, you know, the information science field exactly was right for me if I wouldn't have done the HILS program. And I mean, you know, so I'd say it's worth it, but I guess in terms of, you know, like the debt and other stuff, check in with me in maybe, you know, 5-10 years or so, and we'll see. So, you know, just to give it a fair, you know, shake there, but yeah.
Shelly, did you want to chime in there? Is it worth it?
I would say it really depends on who you are and how much you enjoy what you're studying. Similarly to Andrew, I'm in the HILS program. I came in only knowing the history side of things. I didn't know anything about MILS. And over time, I've realized I still really only care about the history side of things. It is definitely difficult, but I would say if it's something you're passionate about, if you really enjoy studying history, yes, go for it. I will say, if you are planning on trying to get a PhD, find funding, do not pay for it. And even if you're a master's student, I know UMD offers GA positions that help you pay for your program, and those are really, really important. So the debt is not worth it, but the education, and if you enjoy talking to people about history, it's definitely worth it.
Okay. I am thinking of holding an event just about grad school, like should I go to grad school and what's it really like? So I'll probably be doing that sometime in November, and can take a lot of questions then. But absolutely, you can accrue a lot of debt, and the job market in certain fields is tough. So you really want to think carefully about that. We have two questions, like Kirsten's hand is up. We'll take Kirsten's question, and then we're going to go to Chris's question.
Hi, so I came to UMD as a transfer. So this is my first semester at UMD, and I have been interested in taking a history class for my upper level elective to satisfy a business degree. But what would you guys say to, like, I can't take a lower level elective at UMD anymore because I wouldn't graduate on time. So in order to like finish the history degree, I'd have to go fully upper electives. Do you think that there's any benefit to only taking the upper level electives at UMD, or do you think that there were some like lower level electives that really set you up well for what you continued to do with the history program?
That's a good question. Who wants to tackle that one?
I can answer that a little bit. I don't think that the history courses, the lower level history courses and the upper level history courses are necessarily different a lot. I think like obviously there's like going to be a little bit more work for the upper level history courses, but I don't think it's like necessarily like you learn more by taking a lower level history course before an upper level history course. I think I took like maybe 1 or 2 lower level history courses and then went right into the upper levels, and I didn't really notice like that there was much of a difference. And also there are a lot of people taking upper level history courses that are not history majors and have never taken a history course before. So the expectation isn't like, you know how to do history, you know how to do a history course when you go into it. The expectation is that you're just like interested in the subject. So like your professors aren't going to expect you to like know how to do a history paper, or like, you know what I mean? Like there's going to be guidance on that. Like you're not just thrown into it.
Professor Chung, do you want to chime in there as well? Because you teach both upper and lower level, and what do you see as the difference?
Yeah, I think in addition to the levels, one thing to look out for in the description, if it's a lecture or a seminar, lecture courses are going to be more traditional, where the professor gives lectures. I think most of my colleagues work in discussion. Seminar is going to be primarily discussion based, and I think it's also surprising for some students who aren't in history because the discussion is often driven by the students, right? So the way a lot of seminars are organized, you get to read upwards of a book a week, and you're coming together for 2 hours to discuss it, right? So I think in a lot of ways, it's super interesting and enriching. And I think it's exciting in some ways because you as a student get to talk about what's interesting and ask questions that you have. But I think that is what I think is like really different in terms of the format and expectations. I also think in terms of assignments, you're probably going to have a longer paper due at the end of an upper level class, whereas in a lower level class, the papers will be shorter, or you might even have exams in lieu of papers.
Kirsten, does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So Chris Roberts, Dr. Keene, he was in your 408, which he said he really loved. And he's going to be a teacher. So how does he convey that his experience in a seminar to applying to teaching jobs?
Thank you, Chris. Chris's project was amazing, by the way, and he's not going to toot his own horn, so I'll do it. It was so good. It was accepted to this really competitive national baseball conference in Baltimore this year, and he got a scholarship to present there. So yay, Chris. I mean, one thing I try to do in my 408 classes, and I know they're all a little bit different, is that I encourage all of my students to either present their research in a public forum, to publish it somewhere. I've got lists and lists of undergraduate journals where you can publish, to apply for prizes, to think about writing blog posts on your material, like how you can actually demonstrate the work you've done. But when I think about the project anyone in a 408 does, I think you could really break down the skills and not just the topic itself, right? You designed an original research project. You undertook research. You did a presentation. You did peer review. Like, you did all of these different steps that you could then discuss in a job interview as something you could actually bring into the classroom or some other job, workforce, please.
Okay. Well, because he's going to have to be teaching these skills to his students at a lower level. So all of that he can apply. Congratulations, Chris. How about a little bit more from our audience, whether you're a history major, minor, or just thinking about it? If you want to share in the chat or on camera, what are you finding that you like, or that maybe is missing that you'd like to see with your history classes, from your professors, TAs? Because it's been a tough readjustment with the pandemic. So if anyone wants to share or ask, or tell us what you want. More European history classes. Okay. How can we address that? We have some retirements coming up, so we'll see, where that goes. But there is, quite a bit. We've got Russian history, we've got British history. Right now, we still have German history. But yeah, we need more of everything.
Would you guys be interested in classes that addressed public history or digital humanities, other kinds of skills-based courses, not just topics? Yeah, thank you.
Cecilia's graduating, so she doesn't have a say. Taylor, yeah.
That's helpful for us to know as we were thinking about next year.
Definitely. How about socially? Is there anything that's missing? Or is there something you wish you could ask your professors, like at the start of the semester, or now that you've done your midterms? Anything you want to improve in your classes? We should do a survey about this, HUA officers. What's a good upper level non-European, non-American history class to take? Good question, Taylor. Shelley, can you recommend anything? I should probably bring up Testudo for our spring courses.
Thank you for asking something that I don't have the answer to. Unfortunately, off the top of my head, I know we do have different geographic regions, of course. There was one that sounded really interesting next spring about Ukraine. That's one that comes to mind immediately. Unfortunately, I do American history, so that's mostly what I know.
I'm just going over testudo right now. And so upper level, let's see, 300 and 400. We've got stuff on early Christianity. We've got, for those who like Europe, European entanglements in the 30 Years' War. Alexander the Great. Let's see, global history of capitalism. We've got a course on the modern Middle East, something on climate science and society. Let's see, China, modern Israel. So check out Testudo as you plan your spring. I think there is actually quite a lot of interesting courses. Okay, let's see. There should be some great East Asian courses.
I don't know if it's offered next spring, but Dr. Rubin finds History of Japan that I know she's done sometimes. That was really great. I love that as an undergrad. It's one of the reasons why I added the East Asian stuff. So,
History of Japan,
yes.
Since 1800. That, yes, it is being offered, History 483. Thank you, Andrew, for that plug. Okay. This one is mostly American. Let's see, Kyle took history of, wait a minute, is that a 419? You left out a number. Oh, 329G, special topics in national cinema. Do you recall who that was with, Kyle?
With Dr. Javakino.
Okay, he's on leave this semester. He may be on leave next semester as well, right, Kate? Yeah, but next year, definitely. Okay, we have a few more minutes. I know I don't want to keep everyone because I know you're tired and our panelists have had busy days teaching and taking classes, but this is your chance. Anything else you want to know? Have you mastered the art of essay writing and exam taking? You all feeling okay? I know we're all really tired and run down by this point in the semester. Would our panelists like to offer some advice?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Have any of you used Portfolium, which the university is trying to get you to do?
Yes, and I hated it.
Okay, it's not useful.
I just feel like it doesn't really make a lot of sense in terms of
For
like,
history majors, or
yeah, I used it in an English class for like my professional writing. It was required, like the class was required. The one I took wasn't, but you had to take professional writing, and that's the one I did it in. I did not like it. I used my history stuff for it because like I'm a history major, but I didn't feel like it really made a lot of sense, and it wasn't very user friendly. That was the thing. There was like a lot of issues and a lot of kinks that still need to be worked out with it, but someone else may have a different perspective. That was just mine.
that's helpful.
Well,
That
they
is-
were saying it's hard to use, didn't see the benefit. So,
And
Kyle?
I had a similar experience to Cecilia. I had to use it for professional writing, and like it kind of felt like we were doing it for the class. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I just like misunderstood what it was for, but it kind of felt like a LinkedIn that was used by less people and also less often.
Yeah, okay, that's kind of what I thought. And I didn't know if it was more geared towards like engineering students, or you know, if it wasn't really set up for us in the humanities side. Thank you.
Yeah, speaking as someone who also used it in the English class in undergrad, when we were asked to look for examples, almost all the ones I saw were engineering or STEM related. And I thought it was really awesome. When I used it, it was like, oh, but I literally haven't touched it since, and I haven't given anyone the link, just being frank. So yeah.
Anyone else? Our panelists, do you have questions of the students? I'm always trying to figure out how to get students to talk more, or if maybe they're just shy and quiet and don't want to talk. So maybe someone can tell us what works. Do any of our panelists have a question of our student attendees? So then let's end with our panelists offering one final thought for success in the major or minor. Success in life. Who would like to go first? Professor Chung.
I would say one thing I struggled with as an undergrad and even like a grad student, and sometimes even now, is like reaching out to professors. I think that's something that can be intimidating, especially if you're in like a lower level lecture class and they're kind of at the podium and sort of speaking very authoritatively. But I think I can speak for myself, but also my colleagues. Everyone in the department is very nice, and it's actually exciting to get emails sort of asking follow-up questions not related to like purely logistical things like when is the exam, when is this assignment due. So if there are things that you find interesting in a class, in a reading, or things you're curious about, not just in terms of the course content, but the types of topics that we covered in this class, I would reach out to your professors, and I think you would be pleasantly surprised by how open and willing they are to engage with you. So I would say that's one nugget that that came to mind.
That's great. Shelley, as a history advisor, what's your advice for them to succeed?
Whether you're a major or minor, I would definitely recommend talking to James and I at some point, just to make sure you're fulfilling all the requirements you need to. And also we can maybe help suggest courses, or if you're in the minor, maybe we can say, hey, look, you're really actually close to the major, getting the major done. So maybe we can help you figure out stuff with that.
Julia.
I would just echo Dr. Chung and say, reach out to your professors, especially if you're going into a first essay or something and you just want to make sure you're brainstorming things correctly. And then also reach out to your fellow students, because it may seem like sort of an isolated task to write a paper, but bouncing ideas off of each other and peer reviewing your papers is really what's going to make your paper stand out.
Okay, good. Yes, you know, and again, even if you're not in honors, have a friend proofread your papers too. So important. Dr. King?
Okay, I would say take a swing at a subject or a class that you're not familiar with. Try something new. I think it's sometimes easy to stay in your lane and just take US history or European history. I took a women's history course when I was an undergraduate in the 90s, and I was like, oh, I'm going to hate this. But I ended up loving it, and it kind of changed the way I thought about history. And I would encourage you to try something new, right?
Absolutely. Michael?
Yeah, so I would say, in addition to the kind of marketable skills that we talked about earlier with like writing and I don't know, being able to talk about things interestingly, I think one of the big things that you can get from a history degree is being able to critically think about, well, historical sources, or also kind of anything else in your life. So one of the things that I would really encourage you to do, one of the things I do with my students is that'll help you in your history classes, is not just to take that critical eye to documents that you're looking at or readings that you're doing, but even to the classes themselves. Like I will ask my students, why do you think I assigned this to you? And so I think if you're able to kind of take that critical eye, why is this professor having me write this assignment? Like, it's probably not just because they're a sadist. I think that will like help you kind of understand the point of like what we're doing here. And I think that will help you get more of a, I don't know, bird's eye view of the class. So that's my parting advice.
Okay. And yes, none of your history professors are sadists. We love you. All right. And Andrew.
Well, I guess I'd definitely echo the reach out, but also I'd say do the reading. As silly as that may seem, even if you might not be asked about it, at all, I think it's so important. I was notoriously bad about not doing the reading at first, but then I think once I really picked up and really started doing the reading, I became a better reader. And I think that's such an important skill, to be able to pick out the most important points in what anyone's saying and be able to discuss it. It may be a better writer. I mean, the more you read, the more you learn strategies when it comes to writing. And just you'll know more about everything also, in the course, and it really helps. And two, like other people have said, they're not assigning it just because they want you to waste tons of your time reading a 300-page book. There's a reason for it, and it's almost always important, and it'll really help you if you actually do the reading, as silly as it may sound. But yeah.
Okay, absolutely. And our HUA presidents, and also, why should they join HUA?
So I joined HUA initially to put it on my resume, frankly, but then as I started going to events, I realized like how much of a community was built, like among not just the students, but also students and faculty. And it's just been a great experience, and I really recommend it.
Cecilia,
I mean, I think it's great if you want to learn more about different topics without taking a whole course on it. I mean, we have a lot of different events on different sort of like historical topics that are a little bit more official. Like we have a lot of social hours, which are fun, but like we also have professors come and talk about things. So way to learn new things without devoting an entire semester to a course. So that's beneficial. But yeah, it's also a good thing to put on your resume, to be honest. So that's helpful. And a word of advice from me, I guess, would be like, just take breaks. Like that's like kind of like general, but like I know for myself, I really struggle with this, and like I would struggle to take breaks, and just like find something that you can do. Like it literally can be anything, like watching a TV show or reading a book, which I hated doing because I already was reading so much, but like find a place on campus that you like and just chill there for an hour listening to music. Like literally do anything. Like please take breaks. Like you'll thank yourself later if you take breaks now.
Okay, so I just want to thank our panelists for giving your great advice and suggestions, and I want to thank our attendees for coming. I hope you got something useful out of this. I want to just remind you, success in the major isn't just about, how do I get A's in my classes, and do you have to, but also just about enjoying your time here, building a community, getting to know each other, your professors, your TAs, but also loving history. And hopefully that love will follow you throughout your life, and it'll be more than just the classes that you took. But we care about you, not just as our students, but as people. So whatever, if you're having problems with your classes, or you just want to tell us that you liked it and share something, we want you to do that. We want to know who you are. So please make sure that you build connections with us, and we'll try to do the same with you so you can succeed in the major. All right. Everyone, we hope to see some of you Wednesday night, free cider and donuts outside of Key at 6:30, and a scary story. You can come in costume or not, and we'll have other events as well. So I guess we'll say goodnight, and I will have the recording posted hopefully by the end of the week. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Patrick.
Oh, thanks, Julie. This was great.
I hope so. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
I appreciate you giving up your time.
Oh, yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
Okay. Good night.
Night.